Who is it? Vinny!
Hey, dude, are you there?
Hey, what's up, my
I'm here,
brother?
man.
How are you,
Dude,
man?
I don't have a scary story, man. I was like, I'm gonna have pretty much a heart attack. I'm like having a heart attack, but I can't scream or anything. Basically, laying on the floor, panicking.
Oh!
No, you weren't. You built the place. I haven't seen the Hopi in thousands of years. Don't make fun of my people. Period.
Sorry,
I'll
Brandon.
come after your ass and cut you up in little bitty bits.
Facebook page down because people said Richie from Boston's gay. He's gay. I'm gay. I'm a gay man.
And I mean, yeah, I mean, you can prosecute me for that if you like.
No, it's not why I'm doing that. I'm just saying there's a lot of...
That is what you did. And I mean, yeah, I mean, you can prosecute me for that if you like.
No, it's not why I'm doing that.
Bigelow
I'm just
started
saying
buying
there's
websites, including one in British Columbia, Canada. So all of a sudden, this kind of triggered Brian Vike.
Welcome back to Third Phase of Moon. Blake Cousins here. We've got a special report for you. We've got a few UFO videos that we want to share with you. Welcome back, everybody. Blake Cousins, along with Orlando Smith and Brent Cousins, we're going to be going over incredible imagery. Phase of Moon. Third phase of Moon.
10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff.
You were either in or you were either out, brother.
But the cream rise to the top. Oh,
All right. Well, welcome to Goof On, everybody. I'm your host, Rich Giordano. It is September 22, 2021, Wednesday, hump day. How the hell are you? You made it. And you are on the downside of the week, right? You're heading into Thursday, Friday, then the weekend. You really only got one day left. So tonight will make it go a little bit faster for you. I can guarantee it. Tonight was supposed to be, and still may. I'm keeping my hopes up, but they're waning, that Michael Horn will be here to debate whether Billy Meier is a hoaxer or the real deal. And so far, no show. And alien scientist, I thought he was coming. He may show up here. I don't know if he's working or whatever. And Robert, who is Frapsap, is having technical difficulties. He keeps showing up in the green room, but I can't see or hear him. And it's just a white screen. But Cal Korff is here, and I'm going to bring him on because we're going to get this started. I hope we don't have any of these echo issues, which I know we will. But I am bringing on Cal right now. So, Mr. Korff, welcome to Goof On. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Thanks for inviting me today.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for accepting. I'm glad that it's happening. But I'm a little let down that Horn isn't here yet, and the other guys are trying to get here. But, we got a lot of stuff we could cover. And talking to you before the show started, I was already hearing things I didn't even know. So starting off with Billy Meier, you said that it started out and it was a cult. So I guess if we can jump into that, but I also want to know why you got involved too. So if you want to start with why you got involved, then we'll get into the cult thing.
Sure. I appreciate you asking that foundational question because it's important to establish the right foundation and right angle, if you will, to explain where I'm coming from, what motivates me, and the kind of background I have, which, to be honest, in the UFO field is unique, but it's fully sourced, and it's been a matter of public record for decades. People like Mikey Horn and other hoaxers and frauds, to be very blunt and honest with you, never talk about this stuff, because if they did and they admitted it's true, then they would be out of a job, so to speak. Is it possible to share the screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me bring it up.
Okay, I'll do share.
Oh,
Share.
wait, you can just do it, and then I'll bring you on. So whenever
Okay.
you can see that, right? All
yeah.
right.
So let's see here. Let me put you on this monitor.
Now, with this StreamYard, we've been having issues with the echoing. Like anytime you have a screen showing, it echoes. Everybody's having this problem. So we'll see how it works, and it should be okay. I'll just mute myself if, or whatever, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay. How is it now?
I don't see it yet.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. Okay, share screen. Here we go.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, what's up, Robert?
How's it going, Rich?
Doing good, man. You having troubles getting in? I appreciate you doing this.
I prayed.
And it worked. All right, I see it here. I'm going to add this. Here we go. Now, I just want to ask if you guys speak and you hear yourself, let me know, because that means we have the problem. Do you hear yourself echoing, anybody? Cal?
I don't.
No.
We're good. Okay. So here we have it. Okay, we can see it.
Okay. All right. Are you full screen now?
I can go full. There we go.
Okay. All right. I'm looking at my slides, so I'll fly blind, but this stuff kind of runs itself in a way. All right. So basically, there's a new series I have called Ufology. And it is not a prank. It's very serious. And I'm not the only one who's working on it. This is one of the titles that are part of that series. And it's in honor of two things. One is Stanton Friedman had told me the difference between ufology versus ufology, because I met him in May of 1975 when I was a young boy. And I came up to him and I asked him what he thought of UFOlogy. And he laughed and he said, it's ufology. And he explained what it was. Ufology is simply the scientific study of UFO data, period. That's it. Ufology, it's a real term, is when people make statements or conclusions about UFOs, which are not derivable from credible data. And unfortunately, most of ufology is ufology. Mikey Horn is a ufologist. Not only is he a fraud, but he says stuff all the time that is not credible. So I begin the new series with this reminder from Abraham Lincoln that we have to be careful about quotes on the internet, because, of course, Abraham Lincoln didn't exist back then. And it's a reminder that we have to trust but verify in today's online world, especially. So this is what I cover, foundationals. To answer your question, I've devoted my life since October of 1973. I know the date, the 19th. Of 1973 to conducting original research. Original research is original research. Original research helps push the human race forwards. All original research is valuable, even if someone ends up not doing anything with it. I also finished research that is left incomplete by others for whatever reason. I finished investigating a lot of UFO cases, which were left up in the air because the investigators didn't want to know the truth, or they weren't in a position to find it at that time, because technology does evolve. And then I study existing issues and I provide solutions. Then I move on. And I have devoted my life to this. Everything I do in all the areas either falls within these, categories, or I'm not interested, to be honest with you. And my research and books prove this. I have over 10,000 articles published in major newspapers around the world. They are consistent with these three, what I call my charters of responsibility. And I've run an informal organization called Critical Thinkers for years. It's a successor to Total Research. And we have these divisions. These are the areas that I play in, if you will. And I either do original research, I finish research left incomplete by others, or I look at existing issues and I try to solve them. Under the science charter, exobiology is an area that ufology is under. And unfortunately, to separate fact from fiction, you have to deal with ufology and ufology. And the reason I'm into this real quickly is because if you look at the numbers, we're hosed unless this changes. This is a spreadsheet that shows how many tens of millions of Americans believe in at least one stupid and impossible conspiracy. Everybody, at least one. And when these numbers here are this high, and it's gotten worse, this is before the election madness. You know, look at this here. Obama's the living Antichrist. 40 million people believe that. It's scary. And these are the main areas. And so I try to get people to understand the truth here, separating fact from fiction. These are minimum numbers. And this was before the outbreak of COVID. And studies have shown that, it's gotten to the point where it's pretty much political now. When I hear somebody tell me I believe in this conspiracy, I can pretty much tell you whether they're an independent, a Republican, or a Democrat.
I can too.
Yeah, it's gotten to that point. The Democrats have been driving the ATIP stuff, started with Clinton and the Roswell probe. You may remember that. So this is all stuff from my thesis, studying human behavior. Look at the Kennedy assassination. 81% at one point believed that was true. You can see here how it was pretty consistent over the years, but it got worse over time despite the invention of the internet and, of course, access to more information. And if you look at the UFO question, this was a survey done a few years ago before the New York Times piece. You can see the Democrats are way out of touch versus the rest of the country on this issue. And independents seem to be the most level-headed. They seem to want proof before having an opinion, which is a wise thing to do. So again, to cite stuff from my thesis work, this was a study where it showed here that America is a predisposed society towards conspiracies. It's a question of which one. And it's gotten to the point where everybody believes in at least one wrong-headed conspiracy, or they know somebody who has, or they're involved, or have a family member. And of course, that causes division in our society. And real quickly, this is just a quick summary of stuff I had done from 1973 as a young boy up to the year 2000 when I left the U.S. I was on CNN on a special anniversary of Larry King Live, solving Kennedy's murder, Fox producer, Fox Encounters debating Jim Delatoso on the Meier cult in the 90s, had just come back from being undercover there. MSNBC special on the 50th anniversary of Roswell. I'll be doing the 75th next year. On Lisa about the Phoenix Lights, ABC TV defeating Kevin Randall on the Roswell anniversary. He was with Frank Kaufman at the time. Then, of course, Discovery Channel, Secrets of Area 51 Revealed, and Bob Lazar, showing that Lazar was a fraud and that UFOs are used as a cover story for military tech, often by the government. And this started my interest here. This is why I can tell you the date. I saw this newspaper clipping when I was a kid. To me, this was either real or it wasn't. This was a famous case where this police chief took these photos, supposedly of a creature, and it turned out to be a hoax. But the good thing was we could solve it, though. And it's unusual for a police chief to fake something. So I was fascinated with UFOs, the unexplained, everything I didn't know, which was a lot, of course. And it mentions in here that I'm in touch with the top researchers, including Hynek, Friedman, Wendell. They were all my friends. Wendell had the largest UFO photo collection in the world. I had the third largest at the time. We traded material, and the Meier case came between us. And this is real stuff that's not on the internet, only because I never bothered to put it there. So the next 4 titles in the ufology series are coming out in October. This is an update, the Annie Jacobson book. And what I've done is I've added multimedia elements to all the books. You just have to point your cameras now or tablet at the QR codes, and magic happens, meaning it takes you to something online that further fleshes out or further explains or gives credible data and separates ufology from ufology. I wrote this book because I'm one of the 4 original Roswell researchers, and it's heartbreaking to see her get away with these lies about history, and get a #1 bestseller pushing lies. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
This is the book I wrote with Stephen Cambion on Wendell, and this is important because I can thank Mikey Horn, right, who's not here, I guess, for actually causing this to happen. And what I mean is Mikey had repeated a lie that Wendell made up, that he was framed by the CIA for child molestation crimes. He served prison terms for that, 3 concurrent terms. And I broke that story years ago, and those documents were never on the internet. And then we let it go once it was published in the news. And then I'd forgotten I'd written a book called Incredible Wendell Stevens showing all this. I actually forgot I wrote a book. I'm a little eccentric. My girlfriend will tell you that, Melissa. And so I told Stephen, hey, why don't I take the book and let's do an update and show what Mikey did and show that this thing has come full circle. And this is that book. And this is the next one coming out in October. They're all days apart. This exposes the Hill case for good and shows what Stanton Friedman knew but never shared with the public. I have the original files. I was his archivist. It's all in there.
Wait,
and
is it a hoax?
It is not credible. And we could happy to show you the astronomy data on another show, or we can talk about this later.
Yeah.
But real quickly, I know I'm blowing through this quickly, but this is coming as well, the 4th title in October. This is exciting because I did file an FBI complaint, and hopefully the FBI will do their job and we'll find out whether these allegations are true about ATIP. This would explain where the money went, since no one can account for it. Okay, so this is the update to the Wendell Stevens book with Stephen Cambion. And again, I've added multimedia elements. And what we're doing is we're releasing products. This on the left are the Meier books and exposés I wrote years ago in the updated one. And we're releasing, basically fake ship product lines. And it shows you how to fake Meier's photos exactly like he did, step-by-step guide. So if you want to be your leader of a cult and hoax photos, you know how to do it now. They can't say anything about this because anybody can verify this. You can see it here. We've got perfect recreations of Meier's photos, and that's what we've done on this merchandise. This is a laptop case, and they're meant to be discussed. These are cards, postcards you can buy and mail to people. If you go to my website, calcorf.com, click on the store button, we have Fake Ship's conversation mugs. They're meant to be discussed. And what you see is you see the Meier photos. Then we show you exactly where he took them, how to fake them. Look at these images. They're beautiful. These were from secret undercover trips to Switzerland. You can see where this guy's jogging right by the tree with the model. That shows you it's a small model. That's a photo taken by Phil Langdon. You can see here where we went to the same spots in Switzerland, held up models, got the same results. So there's no question they are fake ships. It's important people know the truth. And I don't think anybody's done this, where you've got ufology on a cup, on a mug. You can talk about it with people, debate it, make a bet, whatever. But the point is you can verify it yourself. And that's the point of doing this, because facts are, verifiable if anybody wants to check them. Now, real quickly, inside the Wendell book, you can see it's a detailed presentation of his court file. You can see the direct indictment, allegations of prior convictions. It turns out that we discovered in the trial that in the court case that Wendell had a prior conviction for felony child molestation, and that prior admission of it was added to the counts and a factor in the sentencing. So it wasn't just these incidents in the 15 counts. There was a prior incident involving a male, and it's all in the court records. You can see here a slide. This is from the book by Stephen and myself of the UFO conference we were at, when it went down. That's an original slide. That's when I last saw Wendell before he went to prison. And he was very friendly, and I wondered why, because he was mad at me over Meier. But now I knew why, because this was his last taste of freedom for nearly 7 years. Yeah. I showed Wendell these images here in front of everyone on stage. I talk about that in the book. And I said, hey, we've got a problem. Not only are these models from the Dean Martin show, but the camera optics are backwards. If Meier's camera was jammed short of infinity, f2.8, the girl in the back should be in focus more than the closer woman, but it's just the opposite. So, Wendell couldn't say anything when I said camera optics don't work that way, because he knew this was a hoax. But he hid these photos at first until myself and others brought them out to the public, because I was getting the data from Europe, from European friends. Meier was well known in Europe as a hoaxer and a fraud, and busted as such in the European press before he was discovered and marketed and exploited here in the United States. This image shows me at that time with the Lorenzens. I was the go-to guy between all the major parties. I got along with everybody. I secretly supplied them with computers and stuff like that. And because everybody didn't get along with everybody, APRO hated MUFON, MUFON hated GSW, Lorenzens hated GSW. I was the guy in between all of this, trying to make everybody get along, focus on the data. And the book series is big on the cases we were able to resolve, like the Hill case, only because I bothered to be the young kid in between all of these people, which I thought was interesting because these are adults. They're supposed to be more mature, but they were human, of course, more than anything. And this is a slide here that really sinks Mikey Horn's ship, or any believer in the Meier cult. These are some of the books Wendell published. Look, UFO, I came from Venus. He claims all these are true cases. Well, how can that be if Billy Meier's the only real contactee in the world, according to Meier? You can't have it both ways.
Now I know why. Now I know why he's not here tonight.
Oh,
I mean, this is a lot of stuff. This is a beautiful presentation, by the way. Couldn't be any better. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I put it together literally in 20 minutes before airtime because I have all this stuff everywhere. But thank you. Here was an actual Wendell article in the MUFON Journal where we're back and forth with each other. Back in the days when people debated, they didn't act like a coward and promise to show up on a debate and never, materialize. That's the new standard today for the Meier cult, as epitomized by Mikey Horn. This is the latest show he promised to appear on. He doesn't. Then he makes up something as to why he can't do it.
Yeah,
then he makes some offer that nobody in their right mind would do. They didn't agree to. He did that with Stephen Cambion, as you know. And just so you know, here's the actual tag. I still have it in my archives. It's decades old, from his criminal court file, written by hand. You had to hand this to the clerk. Again, it's not on the internet. They're not going to put these files on the internet unless somebody pays to do it, because they don't make money putting everything on there. Here's proof too that Wendell was a fraud. Remember, he said he was involved in the Ptarmigan cruise, and he said he briefed people on UFOs. This proves he was an airplane mechanic. That's it. Period.
Oh wow! Look at all this.
He knew how to fly a plane because he fixed them. Okay.
Man, this is really disappointing. Now I'm finding out all these things about people I thought I could trust. Although I heard things about Wendell Stevens and stuff, but man, I didn't know about these things. But
yeah, this is an original file I got on him because what he was saying didn't make sense. So this came from Bill Moore, the famed Roswell incident co-author. He gave this to me. That's his writing up there, confidential. He writes Cal. Yeah. But this proves that Wendell was an airplane mechanic, and I'm not taking anything away from him on that. Airplane mechanics are smart guys, but the reason he retired when he did and became a lieutenant colonel is because there was a sudden explosion of them in the bureaucracy as the war wound down and things were changing. So he retired out early as a lieutenant colonel. He wasn't going to go anything more. They let him retire as that, but he had basically a career that, sent him overseas, went to some adventures and saw some neat places. But like Major Jesse Marcel's file, which I got years ago and published, it proved that Major Jesse Marcel was not credible. We can come back to that. Yeah, he lied about his background too. I can come back to that in a moment. That was published in my Roswell book in '97. I was shocked, but I had to let it out.
This is super controversial. I mean, I saw a lot of hate on the internet about you too. Like, people don't like what you're doing because you're really ruining people's dreams. And I understand, people look up to these people.
Well, unfortunately, those who hate me, this sounds cliches, but if you hate me, you hate. It's about the data, not me.
Yeah, right.
If you don't like the fact I've concluded a case is a hoax, I'm after the truth. I don't care what the truth is. I just want it like everybody else. Then you better show me what it is. And if I'm wrong, I'm happy to admit it. I tell people all the time, prove I'm wrong, I'll do a retraction or correction. And I'm living proof of that, because when I wrote my reports in 8th grade that were over 200 pages in length for my teachers.
God.
I thought that the Hill case was true. I was getting ready to write a book on it with Betty Hill. You can see in a moment here her helping me. But you know, when the newest astronomy data came from the Gliese star catalog, I went to Friedman. I said, "Hey, what about this?" He says, "I don't know. I'm not an astronomer." And I spent over a year chasing it down with astronomer Charles Atterberg, came back to him and said, "Stan, it's over, done." And that's why the new book, The Zeta Reticuli Conspiracy, is coming out in October, because it has these files. And it proves that Friedman always knew this case was not credible, how Bryce Zabel is just not telling the truth. It's the stuff they don't tell you, including Kathleen Marding. And I told them this was coming when I lived in India. I said, I've got the files. They survived, you know, all this time in the archive, and I'm going to release them. So this is if people have a problem with this, then they have a problem with the truth. And a lot of them don't admit that this is a religion to them. That's on them. If you don't realize it's a religion and you're in the middle of it, that's on you, you know. Real quickly, this is a surveillance photo of Wendell Stevens's house. On the other side is a swimming pool. That's where he committed his sexual offenses, essentially outside at the pool, as the court documents make clear. This is one of the pages from the grand jury transcript. Again, you can see here, count 1, molestation of a child, count 2, molestation of a child, count 3, molestation of a child, count 4, molestation of a child, count 5, furnishing obscene or harmful items to minors, count 6, films, photographs, or motion pictures of minors engaged in sexual conduct, count 7, molestation of a child, count 8, molestation of a child, count 9, molestation of a child, count 10, molestation of a child. They're different victims. It's not the same person.
Right.
Count 11, count 12, same charges. Then you've got 13, furnishing obscene or harmful items to minors, furnishing obscene or harmful items to minors, and then again another count for count 15. And he voluntarily pleads guilty, count 16, okay? So it's several victims. He voluntarily pleads guilty. He's not forced at all to do it. And he tried to have the charges dismissed, and the court said, okay, if you're going to do this, we're going to bring it all out and show it, because that's evidence. It's in the public. He then scrambled to save his ass and admitted he was guilty and wanted the whole thing to go away. And I broke the story and leaked it to the media, and then later gave the inside story in my Meier expose book, because it was directly impactful to Wendell Stevens's credibility. Real quickly, these are again how I got into it. In the 70s, there were those photos. Here's me working with UFO researchers. Here's one of my 200-page reports. You can see down here, Betty Hill has helped me with my thing on the interrupted journey. You can see a letter from Phil Klass. This is funny because they didn't know I was a kid. They get this typewritten letter and they assumed I was an adult, Carl Sagan and all those guys, and we debate whatever. And it was only years later that they found out I was a kid. Friedman was sworn to secrecy because we knew each other, but Phil never knew. And then in high school, I wrote this book, which caused a problem with Wendell and I. Meier Incident, the most infamous hoax in ufology. And all this material you're seeing now is in the foundationals. There's a book within a book that shows all of this stuff. So you see why I'm speaking with authority on these cases I'm writing about. If it can't be solved one way or another, I don't go there, because why would I try to resolve things? You've got letters from the school district telling me to be on TV, all that stuff. I contributed to all these guys when I was a kid. You can see the first item up there is with Bill Moore and Stanton Friedman, the first Focus newsletter. I was doing the UFO Dictionary project because I was mad that people were being ufologists when they should have been ufologists. I worked with Leonard Stringfield before it was cool to do it. Here was his drawing. Here was mine. After we did very detailed forensic reconstructions based on his testimony.
That's close.
Yeah, and ours was much better and more efficient, but it was those devil in the details that were able to prove that these crash witnesses were hoaxers, unfortunately. And here's stuff from Phil Klass to the Lorenzens to Jim Oberg to Bill Moore, all working with me on stuff. Neither of them know I'm working with each other because I'm the guy trusted in the middle. Here's how they tried to bring me in the aviary. Richard Doty tried to do that. Didn't work. I went public with it to stop it. Here's this thing about Wendell. Here's when I disappeared and went to work for the government doing computers and multimedia. And, this is my where rumors started that I was a government agent and all that. Well, I went to work for KMI at Lawrence Livermore Lab, and I'm the only researcher who did. Bob Lazar never worked for KMI. And there is a book coming out in December in time for Merry Christmas for George Knapp and Company. I'm writing it with Dan Bankert and Stephen Camby and exposing Bob Lazar because I worked with Stan Friedman to do it years ago, and Lazar has since grown legs. This is relevant to the Meier case. Here's the letter. I'm showing it for the first time that sent me off on the thing to go undercover. Here's me as Steve Thomas posing as a believer, growing my hair long for 18 months and a beard. Here's me at a location with the Meier model, recreating his stuff. And I pretended to be a guy named Steve Thomas because they knew who Cal Korff was. So I pretended to be a guy who hated Cal Korff, a believer in Meier, to go over there to get this stuff so I could go get that bastard Korff back in the U.S. They believed me, gave me all their best stuff. And they were shocked when the Meier book came out, Spaceships of the Pleiades.
Man, this is unbelievable. This is what I want to do.
This is number 5 here. I'm on Fox TV showing the model in front of the tree, debating Delatoso. Here's the formula, by the way. Mikey will duck this. This formula can be used by anybody to determine the true size of an object in a film if you have this information. And that formula was used to prove that Meier's photos were small models with dinner plates and all that stuff, as you see here. And of course, they've avoided this subject like the plague because it's optical physics, and anybody can verify that this is valid science. Here's more stuff announcing I was Steve Thomas, went undercover because they lied at first and said I'd never been there. Of course, they found out the hard way I was. Then here was solving Kennedy's murder in high school, the media going nuts over it because I went to Kennedy High School. That's a different subject. Oh, here, going back to MUFON meetings where I'm exposing Bob Lazar, talking about UFOCOM, talking about Meier, on tour Barnes & Noble. Again, we've done this in the 90s, so I have to laugh at people who act like this is all news. It's a new generational thing, and that's why it needs to be out there again, but fully sourced like this so that people can point and say, here it is. You're either a liar or a denier because it's right here, fully sourced. You can't take it out of the universe. Real history matters. As I wind this down real quickly here, I was working with Stanton Friedman to expose Lazar, fake Dr. Kevin Randall, fake medical illustrator Don Schmidt, appearing on an all-day MSNBC special on Roswell on the 50th anniversary, debating Randall on ABC, defeating him, warning people about Heaven's Gate. Nobody cared until they killed themselves. And then the Roswell book ends up being a bestseller. The image on the right is the paperback version that exposed Philip Corso for the first time. He's the first one to do that. Here's when Ray Santilli threatened to sue me over alien autopsy, saying it was a hoax.
God.
Yeah, so
Man,
we said,
you're in it. This is amazing.
Yeah, we said, bring it on. We'll get your cameraman and your ass under oath. You can't afford to be under oath. He backed off. Here's Phoenix Lights. Here's Secrets of Area 51 revealed. Here's Starship Stupors when they were trying to fake and exaggerate UFO stuff going on. Other politicians at that time, like Frances Emma Barwood, you may remember her. Again, I have QR codes you can use in the books. Point your camera to it, and you get real credible data. Here I am posing as Oscar Mayer Wiener, going back again inside the Meier cult. Only this time his wife is going to tell Fox TV he's a cult guru and a hoaxer. This is my brother Rich, who impersonated me online because I was on Art Bell and I just beat Jim Delatoso. I had to be on a plane 2 days later. So someone had to pretend to be me online. That's Calliope Meier holding up the book saying it's real. There's my scene in World's Greatest Hoaxes. And there's Luke Bodergan, who arranged the meeting in secret between Calliope and I. She didn't know who I was till I got there because she thought I was the worst person on earth, thanks to Meier. This was more stuff in Europe when I was doing my column in different areas. And then going for National Geographic, putting the guy who wore the Bigfoot suit back in the costume to recreate the Patterson film for National Geographic, and being the guy who got the contract for Greg Long to write the definitive expose of the Patterson film, You can see from high school here that I started investigating that when I was a kid as well. And then it came full circle with the making of Bigfoot. Here I am with the Zeta Reticuli incident movie coming out for the book. It's hosted by Melissa Martell, who is my girlfriend, it turns out.
Mm-hmm.
And we filmed this in India. And of course, the other scenes are done in Canada, the US. It explains the story of how I knew the truth as a kid and how I'm telling this younger generation the truth, which is not being told to them by the media. And it has real people. And we filmed the first hour of it in India. I have over 10,000 articles published. No one else in ufology has a portfolio like I do. Again, I will put mine up against anybody. Yes, I was even the principal of a school. They wouldn't even believe that. They're that ridiculous. And then here to wind this down, these are coming out. These were my letters cut in response to the ATIP scam, saying this whole thing needs to be dealt with. There's the back end of the FBI complaint and the classified briefing slides I had done for different entities in Washington, D.C. and members of the media. Stephen Cambion, for example, has had some of these slides sworn to secrecy, so to speak, for over 2 years now. COVID delayed all this stuff. Here was the draft sent to the SEC in communications with them to try to stop this swindling of investors. The effort died because of COVID. Over to the Stars Academy. There's the documents there. Exposing Ron Pandolfi, the Joe Firmage techno scam, Harry Reid, all that. Again, this is out there on Medium. And then lastly, I filed complaints against Nick Pope because he seems to be a fraud. That's according to what his own government says. So I did turn him over and filed a complaint with the U.S. government, since this is a material omission for any visa paperwork he has. And it's to show people that we're not going to mess around. Here's me with Stanton Friedman as a kid, how he twisted the word debunker. He told me debunker meant someone with a closed mind. No, it doesn't. Look it up. It means to separate fact from fiction. So the moment you hear somebody say debunkers, he's a debunker, that's a compliment. If they think it's an insult, they're a euphologist. And we need to start with those basic words, because words either mean what they do or they don't. This is just one letter where I have to go tell Friedman, and I'm 15, a year after I've figured this out and have been dealing with the astronomers. Stan, it's not credible. You know it. This is the actual letter. Again, it's in the stuff. There's Friedman and I when we're together. I got letters from people noticing the look on my face when I can't believe what I'm hearing. It's all right there. Everything from my nuclear bomb project as a kid, what I was doing, and what I was doing with Stan Friedman. Working with him and Bill Moore on the UFO Dictionary Project. And again, the conspiracy stuff. And in the books, I have links to credible shows where people can separate fact from fiction. I'd like to link to some of your stuff with your permission. And of course, I've got stuff with Stephen and Melissa going on. And in there, you see the secret ATIP briefing slides for the first time in the new Harry Reid expose book. I'm hoping that the investigation will be finished, hopefully by the end of this year, early next year. And then anybody who gets the book, they get a free update. They just have to register so I know where to send it, because I want to take the readers along with them for these investigations. So these were the cases that I announced over 2 years ago I was coming after, because I had the answers. And I'm delivering on those promises.
Man.
So,
That's
just
beautiful.
on and on. Yeah.
So that is a really strong foundation that I'm glad you went over with, because we didn't know. Oh, we need to stop this here.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a neat effect.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, I need to stop sharing, right? Stop screen.
I got it.
Okay,
Whoop,
there we
go.
go.
Okay. And Robert's been sitting there patiently. We didn't know if you were going to make it. I think you're muted, buddy.
I know. Oh, I'm muted.
I got you.
Oh, you got me.
Yeah.
Good evening. Yes. Hello, Cal. Can I call you Cal, Mr. North?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have to thank you for being here tonight to confront Michael Horn, who apparently didn't show. I just found out. Is he here or is he not here?
No, he's not showing. I really thought he might, to be honest.
You never know. I mean, he could have surprised us, but
it was his idea to do this,
Right. He challenged everyone.
Yeah, he always does that. Yeah.
And I picked up the gauntlet, and I was ready to slap him back. because he came on your show, Rich, as you know, and as the audience, I'm sure, is well aware, recently, within the last couple of months, I think. And he basically said he was sticking with by his guns, perpetuating the hoax, the Billy Meier hoax that everyone knows is ridiculous. It's preposterous, looks laughable. If you have a keen eye for things. I mean, if you just look at one picture or something, you may believe it. And it's like the X-Files thing. And by the way, I was going to ask him, how much did Fox, 20th Century Fox, pay him, for that photo to, Figu? Probably a lot of money, I would think. Because, but yeah, I want to believe. I don't want to believe. Not if it's going to be fake, But that doesn't mean I don't believe in, extraterrestrials or the crafts that they may or may not be piloting, flying around. I've seen things, so I know there's bizarre aerial vehicles floating around out there. But when it comes to phony ones, and ones that can prove. And by the way, I want to congratulate you, Cal, because you have done so much in this what we call genre of exposing these fantastical stories that people are going to buy. They're going to believe it. And it's like P.T. Barnum, he said a sucker's born every minute. And that's kind of what, these hoaxers are counting on people to right away. And I've referred to your work in my own research. Obviously, it's there. And I was going to present some of that too, especially if Horn was going to, be here. But I'm here to, to say that, Horn's biggest argument for it. Now, I mean, you've done all the work. I could just leave and, the whole thing would be busted through and through. And I really don't have to do that as much. But if he was going to be here, I would have come out with the big guns. And I would have said, listen, I got to tell you, his whole argument of why Billy Meier couldn't have possibly have hoaxed it was because the man's only got one arm. I guess he was in some kind of a bus accident in Iskenderion, Turkey, and lost his left arm, which is, no one's happy about that. But could he have hoaxed it with only one arm? Yeah, he still could have. And the reason I say that is because, I mean, what about Rick Allen, the drummer from Def Leppard? He's only got one arm, right? And he's the drummer of a major rock band. And he's still, so he can do it. And as a matter of fact, I know someone else by the name of Billy who also has one arm, and he's got a long beard. It's kind of funny. And he's a motorcycle mechanic here in Lowell, Massachusetts, and he rebuilds motorcycle engines. So but Horn gets too confident with the lie and perpetuating the hoax for Billy, who apparently can't do it himself.
Yeah, I can add to that something that might be of interest to you real quickly. When you go to the Meier cult, he, of course, is like a god to them. They just don't call him that. So his ego is so big that if you try to imply that he's less than a fully functional man in more ways than one, they'll give you examples of how no, despite having one arm, he can do this. So there's actually a video which is actually sped up. You can measure the frame rate that shows Billy typing with one hand, one finger, supposedly super fast. And then all the witnesses around him will say that despite having one arm, he's very strong and very adept and very mechanically inclined. So you can't have it both ways. And the other thing, Phil Langdon, when he recreated Meier's photos, he made a point to use one arm. Piece of cake.
Did he really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Well, good for Phil Langdon. He duplicated everything that Billy Meier did.
Everything of consequence, yeah.
Tell the difference, right, Cal? You can hardly tell the difference. I guess Horn could tell the difference, right?
Well, Horn started changing his story. He started saying, oh, well, suddenly it's not the photos. And what's funny is when you go there, they say the photos are just there to get you to come in and lower your deflector screens. It's about the messages of the Pleiadians.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So real quickly, here's what they said about that, because I'd spent over 1,000 Swiss francs and gotten all kinds of photos, and I didn't want to give him any more money, and I had to, but I had to spend a certain amount because I was a believer. But I asked him why I couldn't just photocopy the religious material. And Bernadette Brand, or Brunhilde, she said to me, real name Brunhilde, she said, because you have to buy the printed version because it's so deep spiritually that the vibrations penetrate the fibers of the paper. And if you have only a photocopy, you don't get those higher vibrations, so they don't permeate your soul and DNA. And
there's an excuse for everything.
Exactly.
Why didn't how come we don't feel this stuff? Hey, what's in it for Meier?
Oh,
I mean,
control,
sorry, I meant
money.
Horn. I'm sorry. What's in it for Michael Horn?
Well, he calls himself a volunteer spokesman, but he earns a financial living promoting Meier. That's a fact. He has for a long time. I don't profess to know, even where he sleeps at night. I don't really care. But he is promoting consumer fraud, and he is guilty of committing consumer fraud. In fact, in the very end of the Wendell book, a letter that I wrote to the California Attorney General asking about this and saying my team is ready to present the data, help out. I'm going to follow up on that because Mikey continues to, you cannot sell people stuff you swear is true, real alien photos, if you know it's not, and it is not, and they know it's not because they faked it. It's consumer fraud. Doesn't matter what the subject is. The law does not distinguish.
A lot of people say Horn believes it. I don't think Horn believes it. I think he knows it's a lie, and he's, maybe he's got the rest of the people. I mean, I heard him get real casual on other shows, and his defenses, his shields dropped down. Right. And I heard him talking on another, I won't bring up the name of the show, but it was real recent. And he was on with the female host of that show, and he told her he was bragging about Billy. And I know he loves Billy. That part's obvious. How deep does that love go? I don't know. But he was saying that Billy did all the work by himself. He did the electrical work, he did the floors, and he did the running water.
Well, there you go. Pretty handy man.
Literally
one handy man, yeah.
If Horn was here, what would his defense be? Like, why would he say it? He says all the time, well, he's the only one. What would he go to as the one thing that is proof that he's not a
there isn't any. It doesn't exist. And believe me, when I was in Switzerland, one of the most important questions I had to hunt down from people who knew Meier and remembered him before he became famous is like, was any of this true? Mm-hmm. And I couldn't find a single instance where it was true. Even in the original witnesses who said they saw the light rise from the forest when he took them out on a contact, several of them said, and it's been washed since then, it looked like a balloon with a flare. They could see the reflection of the circular image, shape. And there was even an instance where I talked to the witnesses. They said, Billy calls us and says, come out for a contact. We get all excited. We go out there. We stand around the field. Nothing happens. Then when we get the photos back, the UFO is hovering above our heads, and it's an obvious double exposure. And I have those original photos that Meier himself gave to these people. They provided a statement for me for the book verbatim. So I couldn't find anything. But what I did find is a guy who grew up around New Age stuff, spent some time in India, tries to be a guru, just like the clowns with the long beards. Supposed to be wisdom, right? I lived in India 7 years. I've seen these frauds. Billy's just like that. And he has an inferiority complex. And you just have to ask Mikey about that Talmud Emmanuel, the last testament, true testament of Jesus Christ that Meier supplies. That's what they worship and believe in while claiming out of the other side of their mouth they're not a religion. Can't have it both ways.
Just to let you know, there was a Michael Horn sighting. It looked like he was actually here and then he left. So something happened.
He should have clicked on the come in the video button.
I couldn't. He came and left so quick. So I think he's just playing a game, like showing me that he's here, that he's listening. Yeah.
Why bother? I wanted to say, Michael Horn, because I know you're watching. You forfeited tonight. We were to have a debate. Right. You challenged everyone.
And you did not out, Mikey.
You conceded to us, and we won. So that means you got to go away now and stop going around promoting this. Hoax.
But he'll say nobody proved that Meier's not the real deal. He'll say that.
Done here tonight, Rich. I got to tell you, because let me just bottom line it for everyone here. Not that anyone really believes it anymore. After you, Cal, thank you for doing that service to the world, because it is a worldwide and it's a far-reaching and very sinister and satanic cult that you infiltrated there. I don't know how you did that, but congratulations. And if you listen to the whole story, the contrived, nonsensical malarkey, as I like to say, that we hear about it, that in 1942, the man, Billy Meier, over there in, Hinterschmidrudy,
Yeah.
Schmidrudy, Switzerland, he had his first telepathic contact. That's how it all started. It was telepathy. They were sending messages into his mind, images into his mind, and a voice in his head.
From Scott, yes.
My father's a clinical psychologist and a PhD, and I grew up with the DSM-3 books and all the handbooks in psychology, and that is a psycho-affective disorder. That's like schizophrenia portions. Hearing voices and seeing images in your head. That's what's all on the Figu website, and and then he puts the name to the voice and things like that. And that's all how it starts. That's
right.
Before anything. So that's the bottom line. What you got to understand about this whole thing. And back to could you elaborate? Maybe he could have had an accomplice as well with him, even if he was alone. Saying he couldn't have done it alone. All right. So who's to say he didn't have someone else helping him? I understand that he is a polygamist. So, and that's not even legal in Switzerland, by the way. But he has multiple wives, or he did at one point in time. So one of his wives could have helped him, or girlfriends.
Hey, what's wrong with that?
The leading candidate for his co-conspirator is actually a longtime friend of his, practically his right-hand person. His name is Jacobus Betchinger.
Jacobus and Bernadette, right?
Yeah, and he loaned Meier the money to start his metaphysical study group and put the ads in the paper that attracted the initial group. And after a few meetings, he says, I got news for you folks. I've been in contact with them. They didn't believe him. Some left immediately. Others said, well, give us some proof. Then he starts producing the photos. The reason I think it's Jacobus, if there's any cohort, is because, and it doesn't require one, I think, but if there were, I would pick him. Because he goes back to day one. He loaned him the money, and he is the witness who vouches for some of these things that only he has said. For example, the disappearing tree, which is comical, because I went to the site where that tree supposedly existed. Satellite photos prove it has never existed. I talked to the Weiss family. I was the only one who did. They own the land. I've got photos of it on the new mugs, and it shows that the tree was never there. And so for him to say, I saw the tree there and it glowed and whatever, no, what you do is you take two photos. You take one, you pull the tree, and then switch photos. Say, I took this first, It's
and when you bust him on that, the excuse is, oh, it was time travel. That's the explanation for the tree disappearing, and they took the acorn, they stole it. They went back in time and planted it somewhere else.
It's really ridiculous. And if the tree had been there, that area is pitch black dark. Even when I went there, there's no lights up there at night. That was even more the case in the 70s. So that thing would have been visible from way down on the main road in Wetzikon. You couldn't.
Was that illegal, right? Okay, because he's also, it pops up in Fuchsbiel too, as well.
Yeah, well, Fuchsbiel, there's Fuchsbiel. Fuchsbiel is up the hill from Wetzikon. It's in Wetzikon. It's a Fuchsbiel. It's above the hills of Wetzikon.
But a different side.
Hofhalden, which means above them. And I noticed, and I point to the different directions in my Meier book, that the tree moved. And the reason it moved is because the first location is near the road that I show on the mugs where the road splits. One goes down to the farm, the Weiss family farm. The other goes up to the park. There's a bench there. And I show my model sitting on the bench where Meier had a great view. He could take his time. He had to go further up the hill so that people couldn't see him driving by on the road. And that's why the tree had moved. You only know that when you go there physically. Then there's another set of photos taken above at Unterbaum. It literally is a hill that overlooks the roof of a house. It's about 20 feet in the air. It's not 10,000 feet in the air like he claims. But you can only know that if you go to those locations. And that's why you see on the mugs, the conversation mugs on the website, you see the locations, Meier versus reality. You can actually go there and sit and say, wow, okay, you know.
Wasn't Billy Meier a horticulturist, and wasn't he into bonsai clipping trees?
Yeah, when you look at their, they try to be self-sufficient on the farm. And ironically, down the hill, there's a big nursery called Meier, same last name, and they sell little miniature trees, but they plant lots of them. He was into that, but you don't have to be. Switzerland is full of trees. They're much more economically and ecologically responsible than anything that passes for trying to be that in the US.
Yeah, those, and the pictures that he took too. I mean, oh, they're so convincing, right? How about the film footage? Doesn't it? It's like, where did he go to school to learn how to do that? Where have I seen this before? Oh, that's right, George Adamski. It's like,
is
right?
that how he learned it? You think?
Yeah, he was influenced by those. He admits that he read that, and that's why he knows Adamski was a fraud, which is comical. In fact, the Meier people, after Spacious of the Pleiades, the Billy Meier story came out, and it was the first book to publish his dinosaur photos and his time travel photos.
Yeah.
He admitted they were hoaxes, but the MIBs framed him, set him up. Another lie. But
he doesn't have to worry about the MIBs, the men in black. He's got to, and him and Horn, they've got to worry about the men in the white coats.
Yeah, hopefully. I wish the men in the blue coats would hopefully, you know, prosecute at some point, but we'll see what happens with that. I'm going to pursue it to see. Also, Horn, said that I'm a cancer and I have to be exorcised from society. I'm Jewish. Jews have heard that before, so I'm going to file a complaint against Mikey because, you know, he shouldn't talk like that. But I'll deal with him off this show.
Well, he's a neo-Nazi. That's how neo-Nazis talk. He's a Fourth Reicher. I mean,
I know that the Meier literature is anti-Semitic. Now, they've scrubbed it, the early stuff, where he's condemning Jews and Christianity and any organized religion. But of course, that reverberates, and nowadays that's a bit problematic. So they don't want to go there. But again, if you want to nail Mikey Horn or any Meier nut believer, ask them about the Talmud Emmanuel. The moment they say this is the real Last Testament from Emmanuel, Jesus Christ, game over. What can you do?
And who wrote that? Doesn't he say Judas wrote that? Judas Iscariot?
Yeah, he says Judas Iscariot wrote it, but it's another Judas Iscariot. I guess there were lots of these Judas Iscariots running around. It really is Billy Meier's writing. I published years ago the forensic analysis that was done by some linguists, and they said that whoever wrote this makes the same grammatical spelling mistakes Meier does, G, and it's basically a Lutheran version of the Bible rewritten with New Age passages added. There's several versions of it floating around from different people. The reason they changed it from Pleiadians to Pleiarans is because other people had claimed they channeled the Pleiadians and they were stealing Meier's thunder. So that's when he said, oh, anybody who uses Pleiadians is a hoaxer. It's really Pleiarans, and only Billy's the privileged smart one. Again, it's just bullshit.
So Michael Horn just loves being in this cult, I think, right? Isn't that what it is? Doesn't he? I guess it makes him feel important to do this.
He's not just in the cult. He wants everyone else to be in the cult. He's a hierophant for the cult. He's like the high priest of the cult.
I don't know what drives Mikey Horn because I can't relate to his mentality. I will tell you that of all the people I've ever dealt with since October of 1973 in the UFO field, you can take today's date and do the math. I'm that old, started that young. He is the, in my opinion, the most unscrupulous and repulsive person I know of that I've ever had to interact with. If I never debate him, fine, it's his loss. This is just the latest time he's done this, and I lose no sleep over the guy. I don't think mentally he's all there. That's my constitutionally protected opinion. And I'm not going to respond to anybody who says I'm a cancer that has to be excised from society. I will report that because Jews get that attack often. He'll probably deny he hates Jews. I don't care. The point is, he's in my opinion, just a terrible person. And that's my opinion. And I can cite many examples of that. And I'm not the only one. And maybe he gets off on this. I don't know. I don't want to get in his head because I think he's missing something. He's sick, I think. Anybody who believes in Meier is either a liar or a denier. It's really that simple.
I don't think he believes it. I think he knows it's BS. And I think he just likes doing what he does. I really do. I think it gives him purpose.
I don't know.
I don't know. I can't, like you said perfectly, we can't put ourselves in his mind because it's
and who
so
would
different.
want to? I don't want to be in the spokesman for a UFO fraud. I don't care who it is.
Yeah, and listen, folks, I'm coming to you. I did a deep dive in this, and I have no pleasure in it. You know, it's a convoluted fabrication of events phony events that never happened with hokey evidence and so-called proof, written documents and photographs and films that they don't hold the stink test. I mean, these are terrible garbage that are so flimsy. The evidence that he says is evidence that he says, oh, it's undisputed. You know, anyone could look at it and just say, you're off your rocker, man. And it all leads back. It seems Nazi. It seems like an Aryan.
Yeah, the aliens are Nordic, perfect, beautiful specimens, you know.
And you can't scrub that part of it. So, I mean, that's just that's Nazi philosophy.
Yeah, and that was the thing in the 50s. If you remember in the 50s, they were all good-looking, tall blondes, you know, from Venus, from the backside of the moon, George Adamski stuff. Real quickly, Patrick Sheehan is asking, what role did Colonel Wendell Stevens play?
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah,
I can answer that real quickly. If
it's please do.
Thank you, Patrick, for the question. Wendell Stevens' role was this. Wendell was a top researcher, meaning he was a great collector of UFO data. Doesn't mean it was all true. So what happened is that whenever I get into something, I'm totally into it, as everybody who knows me will attest. So, of course, I understood at a young age, at age 11, that the ramifications of the UFO issue, which I mentioned in the front matter of all the new books, was important because if we're being visited, we need to know that. If we're not being visited and people are liars and bullshitters, we've got nuclear weapons, we also need to know that. So when I got to know Wendell, we traded UFO photos because that was my passion, analyze them with NASA level computers. I had a column in Saga UFO Report magazine, worked with GSW on that. The Meier case came between us. So what Wendell was doing is Wendell had discovered the Meier case because of Lou Zinstag. He received some photos from her. They traded. She thought the case might be credible. She said, why don't you check it out? He then got the money to go over there, realized this was a gold mine, came back and started producing the book UFO Contact from the Pleiades, Volume 1. It was a collector's item now. But as I prove in my Meier expose book, Spaceships of the Pleiades, the Billy Meier story, because I broke the story, how that book came into being was fraud. Basically, a guy named Michael Osborne loaned Genesis 3 over $40,000 to print that book. He never got paid back. There was a lawsuit to recover that money, and it was settled eventually out of court. It was never fully resolved. So that book was like $24.95, $18.95, depending on where you got it. They made tons of money. They used it to fuel a second book. But as the court documents show, because they're reproduced in this expose, there was a lawsuit over that. And Wendell put in writing, I quote his letter in there, that he was a 1/4 partner in Genesis 3 Productions. So he began writing some 50 books roughly and publishing them. You saw the slide earlier. UFO Contact from Venus, UFO Contact from Reticulum. And he's swearing all these cases are true while promoting the Meier case, which is not possible. Then, of course, he was, dropped out of the field for years because he was in prison over his sex crimes. And that's where Mikey and others can't go there and defend it because you can't. They just ignore it and won't tell you. And that's why the book is out to show people, hey, this is the truth. There was no CIA conspiracy. There's even admissions in here that Wendell made it up from Wendell. So
if that doesn't prove that this gang is evil, I don't know what else does, Cal. I mean,
there's no excuse for people to show no mercy on these frauds, meaning when someone is saying, I was abducted, or I've got a video that is the truth, here's the smoking gun evidence, and it is not that, and they're charging money for it, they're ripping you off. It doesn't matter what it is. Would you buy a car that wasn't what make and model and mileage they said it was? The engine wasn't what they said it was. It wasn't in the condition they promised. No, you wouldn't. But why do we throw our minds out the door? Why do we get rid of our critical thinking when it comes to UFOs?
Or don't just stop with one. Yeah, don't just stop and believe it the first time you hear about it. Look into it, and then you'll see what you mentioned earlier, that Calliope Meier, his ex-wife now, aka Popey is her nickname, I believe.
Yeah.
Pope.
Yeah.
There's videos of it if you look on what is it, dailymotion.com. It's not on YouTube, but you look up, Meier, and you'll see she admits that he hoaxed it all and that he's running a cult with the money that he gets from people subscribing to him, and the wedding cake, the wedding cake UFO. If Billy Meier's going to build a wedding cake on the top of a trash can, no wonder it ended in divorce on that one.
I want to show that Phil Langdon video real quick.
Yeah,
if that's okay with you guys.
Please. Yeah, he's done great work.
It's amazing, isn't it? All right, I'm gonna get that hooked in here. I got it all ready to go. I just didn't need to share it. Here we go.
Yeah, Phil got the same camera Meier used. There it is.
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me lower this.
Yeah, I lived in Europe when he was doing this, and we were in touch, and he's just done such a great job. And he is not a master photographer. He just looked at it and was able to take it apart with basic logic, and it proves that the answer is right there in front of us. And I'll tell you, having gone to those locations, Meier picked good locations. And once you float that model above the tree line, it really looks like a ship in the air.
Yeah.
It's quite an amazing illusion. But I will tell you what the cause of that noise was, of the so-called spaceship, which believe it or not, that was an accidental discovery by Phil Langdon. He deserves the credit. Basically, he was using fishing line, and it would tend to spool off, uncontrollably in the wind. Well, that's actually the noise of that spool brushing against and kind of howling in the wind against the microphone. And that's why you don't hear harmonics consistent with a mechanical engine, because it's fishing line. There's no mechanical metal anything. So that solved that. But he just did a wonderful job. The results speak for themselves.
Cal, you don't hear an echo right now when you speak?
I don't hear an echo, no.
It's working tonight. Okay. Well, yeah, so this is it. You guys can see, obviously, there's a 9-minute video, but this guy finds like the trash can lid.
Yeah, can you go back to that image of him holding the trash can lid? It's just a little bit back there.
Yep.
Okay, now I will tell you, it's a few seconds back to where, I'm sorry, it's further up.
Oh, right around here.
No, a little bit more further.
This way?
Yeah. A little bit more.
Yeah, I remember seeing him holding it.
There
it is.
There, right there. Okay. This is important. Go ahead and freeze that, because when I went to Switzerland undercover for Fox TV, World's Greatest Hoaxes, Secrets Finally Revealed, anybody can get that video. I went and got the photograph that you see here, brought it back personally to Bob Kiviat and gave it to him. I was sent to do two things. One is he had hired a crew, which you saw the image from in the book. They're walking, escorting us, to document what I had done. And I was going to go in the cult a second time, try to meet with Calliope, get her on camera. I had my own footage as well, and then get the color slide of this that had been taken. So not trusting FedEx, and didn't want to take a chance for Murphy, because Murphy never takes a holiday. That's been my experience in 27 countries around the world and 4 continents over the years. I brought all this stuff back personally, handed it to Bob, and that is the exact image there. And those trash can lids are standard in Switzerland. You see them everywhere in India. They're basically standard where the British Empire has been a lot, and it's a common thing in Europe.
Yeah.
And it was Meyer's wife who recognized those because her job was to take out the trash, right? She's the woman. That's how they viewed her, of course, which was abusive.
So
she was
this
abused
is
by Meyer.
She was. Wow.
Big time.
Well, so he's kind of like a dick.
Yeah, he beat her, and that
Oh,
they admit
geez.
that. And when we were there, this is why Meyer is wealthy today. Meyer married a follower of his named Ava Bieri, and she was pregnant with her fiance's child when they joined the cult. Meyer forbid them to marry. Then they end up later together, and they had just gotten together, and he had just dumped his wife when we were there. And she came into money because her parents died, and so Billy is rich. And if you look at their website, they've upgraded a bit. So he no longer needs a Mikey Horn. In fact, I think Horn's a liability to what zero credibility Meyer has. I don't know why he keeps him. He certainly isn't earning him good points. And you can see here how Phil is doing his stuff. He did a great job. But that's what was going on there. And Meyer, of course, has slept with many of his followers. And there's plenty of testimonies about that, as well as inspecting their private parts. That was part of what you have to let him do, according to people who have been there. So,
oh, that's a cult for you.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
Hey, let me ask you something, because you said you I guess took down or went up against Jim Delatoso. So have I. Yeah. To me, that guy's supposed to be really smart in this field, and he's made so many mistakes. I can't even count, especially with the Phoenix Lights, since I'm from Arizona.
Yeah.
But
the short version was I was doing a column in Saga UFO Report using computers with GSW. And I was doing a live show speech on the John Dosa show on this new thing called Cable back then. And some guy was in the audience who had connections to Hal Puthoff. And he showed me this Meyer book, and he says, this is the greatest thing. This is the case. And I looked in the back where it showed the computer analysis, and I noticed immediately that the terminology used under the pictures was wrong. And I thought, well, either the graphic artist was stupid or this is a deliberate misdirection. And then I asked Wendell, because his name was there. I said, Wendell, what about this? Why didn't you tell me? We're buddies, you know. And then I heard nothing but bullshit. So the first alarm for me was thermogram. You can't measure infrared on normal film. It's not possible. It doesn't even capture infrared light, that part of the spectrum. So when they did an infrared study analysis, supposedly finding the heat plume behind the jet, really, with ectochrome, daylight, slide film, I don't think so. Physics doesn't work that way. And so I contacted Wendell, and then I realized it was a problem. And I wrote a simple article, a simple paper to turn in as a magazine article. And then it snowballed from there. Delatoso was upset. He said, we read your little paper. And he demanded a meeting. So he came out from Arizona, drove all the way out, spent all day with us in the afternoon. Al Reed, his wife, and I, we recorded everything. The transcript was in my high school book and in the Spaceships book of Delatoso trying to convince us and convert us to the Meyer thing. It's not working. He's lying. And we engaged each other several times. Bob Kiviat, the famous alien autopsy producer, he did that segment on encounters, asked me if I wanted to debate Delatoso. I said, yes, I'd been to Switzerland, I'd gone undercover. There's a book coming out. I've got it all. And that's how that happened. And so Delatoso didn't know what was going to happen. And I showed the image of the thing in front of the tree. And then other debates he lost. The worst one for him was the Art Bell debate, which was 3.5 hours live. It had a live audience. They had a credibility poll. And at the end of the show, Art Bell says, I scored a knockout blow. 81% of the audience sided with me, 9% for Delatoso, 9% undecided. And then I went off to Switzerland to pose as Oscar Mayer Wiener a couple days later to do the undercover thing with World's Greatest Hoaxes. And that was all going down. And that's the last time I debated Delatoso. I told him for years that if you admit that you don't have a PhD from McGill, that you lied about it, and he did on that show, I said, I'll stop. There's no need to continue and beat a dead horse. You've admitted the truth, even though you're admitting you're a fraud on that issue. And that's what happened on the show. Even Art said, Jim, that's fraud. And Jim said, yes. And so I've not engaged him since, and I have no interest in it. And everything I've said about him, I'm done. I've kept my promise. And Mikey Horn is the issue because Horn just keeps agitating to be exposed. He just
my 2 cents about Delatoso is it appears to me, this is just my opinion. I don't know. I don't have any proof. I didn't, to connect the dots of why I believe he's been paid off by the cult to cooperate and to say that it's genuine and bona fide and that he's done analysis that he hasn't done. That's what I think.
And that wouldn't be the first time he's been accused of taking, donations.
Yeah, it's kind of a murky bag because I know for a fact, because back then there were people alive that knew both Delatoso and myself. Delatoso did not make the big payday that others did off Meier. The elders were the ones who got away with it more than anybody, but the lawsuit documents with Michael Osborne, the first investor, prove that they basically ripped him off and he had to sue for there to be any sort of settlement. So my views and comments on this are only in reference and in line with the court records of what has been proven. I have no other data or opinions outside the court records, and that's true with the Wendell case. So Delatoso has made money off of it, but not, it was a little hit and miss, and people who knew him said he complained about that. My issue with Delatoso is that he wasn't telling the truth, and I debated him and corrected him on things, including his claim about having a PhD from McGill in an area that they don't even give a PhD for. And once he admitted that he lied and was a fraud on that, then we're done. I hope one day Kevin Randall will admit that he's a liar and a fraud over his fake PhD. Who knows if that'll happen? But it still needs to be known and put in his face until he does admit he is a fraud on that subject. And that's why I call him fake Dr. Kevin Randall, because it's not a real PhD.
God, man, everybody in this field I thought had some credibility. Just, it's all gone. It's all out the window.
Of all the people I know, I would say the ones that don't really appear on the shows and don't really want to be involved in this controversy, a lot of them are credible, meaning there are so many people, some of them. Paul Dean's a very credible researcher, but is he going to light up the talk show circuit? I have no idea. You'd have to ask him. Brad Sparks is an incredible researcher. Jan Aldrich, but these people are not being interviewed as a rule by New York Times and the History Channel, and that's just pathetic. I'm sorry, I probably cut you off. I didn't mean to.
That's quite all right, Cal. Just back to the inconsistencies and contradictions.
Mm-hmm.
When we're talking about in 2021, people seeing about the UFO and it's going to spark that curiosity, they're going to want to go on YouTube. They're going to want to go on and look for videos about it. And when they do, they're going to be confronted with Randolph Winters.
Yes.
J. Randolph Winters. And this is just indoctrination into this society. And if you watch any of this, and I had to sit through it, and I'm groaning the whole time, can this be put forward as, does this man believe it? If so, that, shall we say, baddie. It's baddie. But his explanation of why it's called a beam ship, and this is a video that Michael Horn did the music for. He was the musical director of. By the way, not very good music either. But beam ship, according to J. Randolph Winters, was when they came and they met Billy Meier in the mountains there in Switzerland, that it was their propulsion system, and that they used a beam that they traveled on in that familiar looking disc that we all know. And where else have we seen that same disc? I'd like to ask Bob Lazar about how his connection fits in with this group, because which came first, the chicken or the egg on that one. But
Meier first, and then Lazar met with Jim Lear, who turned him on to the Meier case, and Lazar took the data from Lazar or from Lear, and then next thing you know, he's saying all this stuff. Yeah.
It's like the They Live glasses. I could see that, when it first came out. I'm like, where have I seen this before? It's a game of memory. And if you forget, you forget. Or if you've never seen it. And I do this for the next generation and the young people now who are interested in this incredible UFO subject, that watch out, because it leads back to a bad place.
Yeah.
And but if you go on the Figure website or the other Billy Meier websites, that there's a contradiction. It's not a beam that blasted him through space or her, these beings. No, it was. It stands for Billy Edward Albert Meier beam.
Exactly. Yeah.
A beam ship. Now, if you're seeing UFOs in the mountains and one lands and an alien steps out and you have a meeting and then they leave and go back, are you going to say that was a Korff ship, a Cal Korff ship? You're going to name it after yourself? Why would Billy Meier, if he really saw a UFO, why would he call it a beam ship? It's named after me, Billy Edward Albert Meier, beam. And that's what he says. And they had, I guess, Winters had to come up with something before they figured that one out, huh?
But if his last name was Fredericks, he wouldn't call it the beef ship.
Unless he made it in his own shop, he'd call it after himself, right?
Well,
yeah.
What you just raised is a very valid point, because honestly, Meier's role in all this has gone from being the humble guy who gets messages and poor guy trying to feed his family to this prophet of the ultimate prophets. He's reincarnated thousands or hundreds of times, all famous people. But now it's Billy Edward Albert Meier. Before that, there was nothing about this for many years. They would have said that from the beginning if that had been the shtick. Where the beam thing comes from is in the early contact notes. Once you read in German, you see that he goes up into the ship in a beam and beam up, literally. But here's a simple exercise that I challenge even Mikey to do. Basically, take a 7-meter circle, 22.75 feet. Make it a circle, and then bring 3 5'8", 5'9" people. They don't have to be fat, just normal build. Have them stand 3 people in that 7-meter diameter circle, plus Billy. Okay. How much room do you have left to sit in there too? Bring chairs, thinnest ones you can. Where's the screen? Where's the stick shift? Where's the engine? Where's the toilet? There's these little things that they obviously need based on their physical appearance, right? There's no room in 7 meters to do this, let alone get in there and fly, hundreds of light years. Okay. In 7 hours. Yeah, right. Okay. So the whole thing just doesn't add up. And, it was easy to recreate the Meier markings in the ground. You just took a round piece of press board, you let it sit there for a bit, or you twist it, leave it there to rotate the grass. And they even reported, folks, that there was insects that had infested those circles. Well, when I lifted it up after leaving it there for a while, insects were happy under the decaying debris of the plant life because they weren't getting photosynthesis. You know what happens? So none of it is mysterious. The metal analyses I posted in the book from Switzerland, 4 different analyses were done, 3 labs, and then Vogel's in the US. Vogel was a fraud who could bend metal with his mind. They don't tell you that. The lab showed that this stuff was normal silver solder. It was from Earth, The piece I was given was a piece of silver solder. Bill Moore gave it to me. He got it from Wendell, from Meier. So, all of this was solved in the 70s and 80s. That's what's pathetic nowadays, that it's, still got a life. Yeah.
Rich?
Go ahead, Robert. You first.
Oh, well, I just want to go back to the inconsistencies and the convoluted contrivance here. It's not just with the story; it's also with the writings. And of course, there's got to be writings. There's going to be things. There's something for these newcomers that are being indoctrinated. And by the way, on the website they have Billy for Kids. So when you I don't have any children. But when my parents used to take me to movies or something, like a cartoon or something that's so fantastic and far-fetched, it's always good to have your parents there for, instead of believing everything you see. But they'll tell you there's a difference between fantasy and reality. And if you're going to watch, all these cool, science fiction things and stuff, suspension of disbelief. And for fiction, you want to enjoy it. You're not trying to pick it apart. But the difference is this isn't presented as fiction. This is presented as a true story, and it's Billy for kids. I wouldn't let my kids anywhere near this if I had kids, which I don't. And the inconsistencies in the writings, okay, like you were talking about, and you did really blow the lid off of the Talmud of Emmanuel, or Jemanuel, or Emmanuel, however he says it. Right in there, it says, I think it's like the chapter 1, right at the beginning, that Semjaza came down, one of the sons of God, and took an earth woman and impregnated her. And that's where we get Adam, the first white man. That's what it says. So Semjaza was one of the... Now, before even the Talmud of Emmanuel came out, a real script was found, a real scroll called the Book of Enoch. And that's got fallen watchers in it. And the chief fallen watcher who descended down upon Mount Hermon in the Levant is described as being called Semjazi or Semjaza. And that's where he got Semjaza. So, and I hate to keep saying that, but it's important for this because this is part of it. In his Talmud of Emmanuel, it says that it was a male figure by the name of who impregnated this woman. Okay, but then if you listen to who is the female with the blonde hair that was just like the Adamski's Orthon with there's iconography to it. There's paintings like Herman Schmeisen type paintings, like the cult of the Count de Saint Germain, the I Am movement of Guy Ballard, like Elizabeth Clare Prophet from the Lighthouse Ministries, and the Purple Flame type of stuff. It's all ascended masters, and Sananda. That's another name that they call for the counterfeit of Jesus. That's all purple and everything. But his was called Semjaza. His woman that looked like Orthon. That has the same iconography, a star in the palm. If you look at a painting, look it up on images on Google search or whatever your favorite search engine is, you'll see that Adamski's Orthon from Venus is identical, except male, female. But Billy Meier's Semjaza was a female. Oh, so is Semjaza female or is it a male? Or is it somehow a transsexual being?
No, she's definitely supposedly a hot male, or female.
Right. But, it's so convoluted, it's contrived.
Real quickly, this is from the Meier expose book. This is a undercover photo I took at the cult. And what I did is I had a camera running the whole time through a peephole in the bag. And I have some excuse to go there every 45 minutes or so and make sure the tape never stopped. And I just go there and go get a gift for Billy and say, oh, here's something else for him. So the reason I took this photo is because I noticed the kids. And as I write in the book, I ran into some kids and I asked them where their mother was because they seemed like they shouldn't have been alone. And they said, oh, our mom is back in the US. I said, okay, well, where's your guardians? They said, well, our mom sent us here to learn from the Pleiadians. She couldn't afford to pay for them and come over. I was so mad that when I got back to California, as I mentioned in the book, I reported them to California authorities. I have no idea what happened. I sent the photos. I found some more photos. And I wouldn't show their faces. There were two girls on a swing. There were a lot of kids there. And as I write in the book at the time, and that's why I'm mentioning this because you brought it up and it made me think of this. It's one thing to mess with adults. That makes somebody angry enough when you're lying to them, deceiving them. But leave the kids alone. Mm-hmm. That is low. I mean, the moment you mess with the kids, I'm sorry, you have no morals. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, kind of reminds me of almost like Scientology in a way, just not as advanced.
Yeah, it's and you're right. The references that he begged, borrowed, and stole from, you could do a correlation graph on it, and it's beyond coincidence. One more thing. Notice the symbol of the Figu cult has changed so that it looks like a peace sign now. He's saying, oh, that was originally a Pleiadian idea put into people's heads in the 60s. Really? Like the trash can lid design, right? That came from Aliens 2, inspired by the beam ship. Yeah, right. No, you got caught. And you just want credit for the peace sign, even though you had nothing to do with it, you know. So
That's right.
And Mikey is a good example of the spirituality of the Meier cult. Look how benevolent and peaceful and willing to discuss the issues he is here tonight.
What a nice man.
What a nice man. He's a mirror of his master who controls him like a puppet, you know. Mikey Horn is a reflection of their morality or lack of, because in the Meier cult, if you are not part of their inner circle where you agree to give the up to 10% of your salary every month to the group, you're impure, you're unclean. That's what they call you. And people in the inner cult circle are not allowed to speak or interact with people who are unclean unless Billy gives them permission to.
What about these dinosaur photos?
Ah, yes.
Didn't he go back in the past and come back with silly dinosaurs too? I forgot about that.
Yes, he did. There's
and the ray gun too.
A pteranodon.
Yeah, there's a section called Billy Meier's time travel photos. These were straight from Switzerland, and they were in the manuscript Wendell had that was never published. Here we go. Let's see. So these are straight from colors that Meier had given to the people who kept the photo binder, and they're stills from movies. And these are stills from Wendell's unpublished manuscript, which proves that he knew this, but they left them out of the UFO Contact from the Pleiades book because they didn't want people knowing this because it would impact cells. So I decided to publish them, and here's the photos of the caveman. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Again, it's from there's this animation series called The Evolution of Man, where he, goes from ape to a modern man. So it points out that, the stills are identical down to the muscle structures. So we know where he ripped the stuff off.
It's so bad.
And this is just his ignorance. This was a photo when he was in space of the Horsehead Nebula. Okay. Well, astronomy was my first love. And I remember this photo very well. If he was only a few thousand miles from the Horsehead Nebula, he wouldn't even be able to see it. It's too wide. It's millions of miles wide. That's a photo taken from Earth. You can line up the stars, So I include all the data from the Physichnis where he claims he took it, all that, because supposedly he was in space for 5 days. So this book was the first to publish that. This one cracked me up because I remember this as a kid. His photos around Venus and Jupiter of the mothership, okay? And it's really the Voyager spacecraft animation is what it is. You can see.
NASA.
Yeah, NASA. So there's the eye of Jupiter and so on. So Wendell's stuff is full of all this incriminating stuff that is left out of the UFO Contact from the Pleiades. It's just complete nonsense. And now they claim that, this stuff was planted by the MIBs. One last photo. This supposedly shows another ship, in space. Okay. And you could see the reflection of the window in the background. You can see the 4-pane window from the house. He took this in off the TV screen.
Oh, yeah.
If you look at the bottom photo there. And to prove it, we just enhanced it years ago before this stuff became routine. We used NASA computers, of course. You can see the window there.
Easily. Yeah, you saw it easily in the other one, too. My God.
Yeah, well, this was in case someone says, no, it's not really there. It's a Rorschach. No, it's there. You can see it is a reflection, from the monitor. And that's the thing is, he's in the ship taking photos and there's a curve of a monitor visible. So he's shooting it off of a curved monitor, cathode ray tube days. And there's the blurry effect, and the scan lines that you don't have in today's digital. Again, all this stuff was solved in the 70s and 80s. And, that's why this foundational material is in all the new books, so that people like George Knapp can no longer say, I didn't know because my ass is in there busted. So that's the idea.
Cal, do you have a degree? I didn't even ask you.
No, I don't. And I'll tell you why. I finished high school basically in 3 years. I actually was going to finish in 2, but they wouldn't let me finish in 2. So I finished in 3. And I was starting to go to college. And after having 4 years of German, they put me in German 1 in college. I'm like, I'm not happy. I was the top student in history. They put me in U.S. History 101. So after going to a junior college, because I had to, the credits were not transferable back then like they are now. I would ask my teachers who killed Kennedy and all that and everything I was interested in. And when they said, we don't know, and I'd ask 3 teachers and get 5 answers, I'd say, well, why the hell am I listening to you?
Yeah.
So I learned very early on, as Silicon Valley exploded with Apple and all these companies, that if I just go work there, I'm going to learn more quickly than I would in a college thing. So when I went to work at KMI at Lawrence Livermore Lab, for example, I was recruited to work there. I didn't apply there. I was the only one without a degree. That's been true for all my jobs. And yet I worked around people who were PhDs. I was their boss, or people who had computer science degrees. They spent 6 years while I knew a guy named Steve Jobs. That was a much more valuable education. So I worked at Boeing, Atari, Apple, Claris, Apple again.
Jeez.
Without a degree. I have been everything from a counterintelligence specialist, was a special advisor to owner overseas, started in security, was in charge of security for the Macintosh project. It was brand new back then. But I was hooked when I saw it in meeting Steve Jobs. I dropped all that and got into IT, and was on the HyperCard team before there was an internet. And that's what we were doing at Lawrence Livermore Lab. Before it was the internet, it was the Octopus Network. It was internal to the defense community. And I'm the guy who, wrote the classified view graph tracking system, put a Macintosh front end, did the GUI thing, because I knew that was the future, the mouse, all that stuff. I had voice recognition running in the 90s. Now it's built in, to the iPhone. So, yeah. So all this is in the book. That's why I show these systems. And, even the new UFOComp software, I talk about it in the 90s, but I'm going to be giving it away to Jan Aldrich and others. So we can start with archive standardization. And then once the archives are standardized, people can use them to do their research. That's the idea.
So what we were going to maybe come back. We don't have much time left, really. I thank you guys for coming on here. It's been amazing. The Hills. You were going to maybe tell me why that really isn't a legitimate case.
Yeah. Make a long story short, there was an article published in Official UFO Magazine right after I'd written my 200 odd page report on UFOs for my 8th grade teacher. And I was going to publish this in a book called The Massive UFO Evidence. I was really sure of myself. And so this article comes out and it says, the hill map's been explained. There's a better star map fit. So I'm pissed off at this point because Betty Hill is helping me. I go to Stan Friedman practically crying like, oh, Stan, you won't believe. He goes, yeah, don't listen to Bob Schaefer. He's a debunker. His mind's made up. Don't confuse him with facts. All right, fine. So I said, well, Stan, it's unacceptable that Schaefer's going around saying this and you're saying the opposite. So do you want me to look into it for you? He's like, yeah, go ahead, kid. Well, I did. So I wrote astronomer Charles Atterberg, and this was back in the Smith Corona snail mail days where you type letters. 1 year later of this furious back and forth, I'm going between all the parties. And it's clear that Friedman is wrong. So I accumulated this really thick file of all original material, and it's somewhere in this pile here. And I told Stan that, here it is. I said, I went over there and I told Atterberg, I'm going to go confront Friedman on this and tell him the bad news, And I handed the file to Friedman and he says, I don't know. I'm not an astronomer. So he blew it off. And these are the original letters that are reproduced in full in the new book. It's all here. You can't deny it. And I'm 14 years old. And all the star data is in here. And what happened was, here's one example here. Okay. What happened is the Gliese star catalog had come out 5 years after Marjorie Fish's used the previous edition of the catalog. It was updated every 5 years. And the data showed that she had the stars upside down and that the data was wrong, although she gave a very good effort. And it even proves here, which is interesting, that Kevin Randall knew. And I was denied the right to publish this data because Randall was supposed to publish it, okay? It's right here.
Oh, yeah.
But Randall never did. So Atterberg then complains to me. He says, well, you can have all this data then, Cal. And that's exactly what I did. And so it's all coming out. And that's why when Randall writes about the Hill case now, he's not being honest, because he's known since day one that this was that way. So in here is all the astronomical data, including the parallelepipeds and everything else. It's never been published before, showing where her map is wrong and what is right. And then, of course, there's the Hipparcos data, which was the orbitable satellite that was sent up by the European Space Agency that mapped stars. And they proved that her map was also wrong. So in the book is a link to the Hipparcos data. Anybody can check it. And then we want to release an app using AR that would be out next year, where you can put the star map in front of you, Tony Stark style, on anything you point at, like your desktop.
Cal,
Move around.
Didn't Betty say that, or was it Barney, said that there was a Nazi on board their craft with them in full regalia?
Yes, he said the creature reminded him of a Nazi, especially because of the cap. And this, you raised a very interesting question, because the Hill case, according to Dr. Simon, who treated them, he should know, Friedman ignores this, as does Bryce Zabel, and of course Kathleen Marden. She won't tell you about all the ghosts Betty Hill encountered. They forget about that. The psychologist said, Dr. Simon said, that Barney Hill got almost all of the experience from Betty, because she talked his head off. She wore the pants in the family. Okay, fine. So that's why he's vague on so many details, because he's absorbing whatever Betty reported. Betty Hill repeatedly mistook lights for UFOs. We know what the cause of their sighting was that night, because a reporter went down that route, saw the same thing, figured it out. There was no radar tracking of a ship. That was a myth. The star map is the only thing that was supposed to distinguish the Hill case from anything else. Without the star map, it's just another I was abducted story. Could be credible, or could be true, could not be true, but we know it didn't happen the way they claimed. And you have to defer back to their therapist, who said this was a dream. You can't argue with him, because nobody was there to treat him like they were. And that's the truth on this. So the book proves that Friedman always knew this, that he suckered Bryce Zabel. It shows how I got mad at him in India, and I said, I'm going to expose this. And it's all laid out there. The Atterberg file survived intact. I had only digital copies in India. The original things are there. And of course, the Hipparcos data proves it. When you can see it and look it up on the internet, you're either a liar or a denier. And that's what I'm trying to do with all these cases. Make them binary, so that either you admit the truth or you deny it, but at least everyone will know what you're really doing. You know, it's not to that point yet, and we need to get it there with all these cases.
It's very scary, Rich. Before, I just want to go back to the Meier case for just a second.
Sure.
You know, it's very creepy. It's very scary. What it leads to? These cool looking. I will say, I'll give him that. That's the only millimeter I'll give that one of the first UFOs supposedly that was photographed. It looks kind of cool. I mean, the one we know from X-Files. Yeah, it's good. It's a cool shape. And even Lazar and everyone keeps promoting the same shape. That's neat. They make models of it. Yeah, whatever, okay? But you got us. Ha-ha. The joke's on us. But it's not just a practical joke. Because these weirdos, they use psychotronic mind control. They use guided meditations with pulses that are arranged at a certain frequency. You can find these online on YouTube. So don't, sit too long and listen to it. But I had to sit through a couple of these weird videos to know this, that they're all connected. And you mentioned Scientology earlier, Rich. And, the beginnings of that come out of JPL as well, and Jack Parsons and Aleister Crowley, the Satanist. It's all connected. They're all cult. and they use mind control and psychotronic mind control. And they admit on their own videos and stuff, if you scroll down into the comment section, like the Talmud of Emmanuel has videos where you can, like audio versions of it, that work. In one of their own things, it says right here that it cures the sick by removing their illogical thinking. This is done through hypnosis, autosuggestions to the subconscious mind. And it says that you can heal yourselves, heal the sick without any chemical intervention. Mind control.
You're right. And it's, like I say, they start with the standard trick. You're familiar with it. They try to say, well, we're going to let you in on a special secret no one else knows. This advanced wisdom. They use the term data bank of the universe.
Rosicrucianism.
So everything, you know, that is of value, this knowledge bank of the universe, Billy has exclusive access to. So we're going to let you in a little secret. And once we share it with you, keep it to yourself because you're special. And, you know, if you're just going to be part of a group here and don't trust anyone else because they won't understand, their mind is closed. So they automatically, by making you feel special, work on the isolation thing. Then, of course, it always leads to money. And if you don't pay your, you know, 10%, then you're not allowed to be there, you know.
As fast as you can, run away from that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Cal.
Well, again, the proof is in the deliverables. Look at how Mikey Horn acts.
Yeah.
If he really believes Meier and follows the spiritual guidance of the Pleiadians and Meier, he wouldn't act the way he does. So there's obviously a disconnect. And if this is what Meier is teaching people, who the hell would want to act that way? Is it enlightened to say, I'll be there and show these guys, then you don't show up? You lie, you make up stuff, call people cancer that must be excised, you know, whatever else he does, it's a matter of record. There's no spiritual anything. It reminds me of the fraudulent televangelists of big religion that get mad when you question why they have a jet and their last name is Dollar. Hello.
Well, besides that, it really stems from the Theosophical Society and Theosophy. Madam H.P. Blavatsky, Helena Blavatsky, had what amounts to a hoax photograph type of cult. just like what Meier's promoting and Horn is promoting these days. It goes back to that. They have these ascended masters who are you spent some time over in India, Cal, and I'm sure you know that there's a philosophy out there. It's not quite Hinduism, but they have these figures in there that don't exist, never existed. They look silly, painted by Herman Schmidtson, and basically Helena Blavatsky blew up a photograph of a painting by Schmidtson and wrapped it around a dummy, and she sat there on a throne, and here's El Moria, and here's Cthulhu, these two people that never existed, only in their imagination, but a painting of it, and wrapped it around like a stuffed dummy to make it look like another person is in the room. It doesn't even look good. It looks phony. It's the occult, and it's not just a cult, it's the occult, and it's very scary. And it's very creepy and very evil because it actually goes back even before her. It goes back to George Edward Bulwer Lytton, or Lytton, and The Coming Race, which also influenced the Thule Society and eventually, the National Socialists over in Germany and Hitler. But it was before World War I. I mean, this has got the sentiments of anti-Semitism right there. The Aryan Brotherhood, that there was an Aryan Superman, Supermen living underground in Shambhala, Agartha, whatever you want to call it. That was a hollow earth theory. It's all connected. It's secret society stuff. It's what shall I say about it? Other than that, other than it goes back to the coming race, which it sounds amazingly like what Anjali has recently come out and said, that there's a cave and that there are these white, long-haired, Nordic-looking beings down there That's all lit tone, Bulwer lit tone. That's what else can I say about that? But there's where it leads.
Yeah,
And,
you're right. You're connecting full circles, and I commend you on doing that because
sure.
based on what I see in Twitter, a lot of people couldn't mention these names, rattle them off like that, would have no idea what you're talking about. Years ago, people knew who Adamski was. Nowadays, you have to be over a certain age,
That's
and
what I'm for.
that's why it's important to point out how all this comes full circle. Real quickly, can you ask what cases may be real? Oh, okay.
Yeah, they just want to. I was going to ask you anyway. Thanks, Xavi G310 for the $5 super chat too. But yeah, do you guys? I'll ask Cal first since you're already thinking about it. What is a valid case? Is there any?
Okay, first off, to be honest, that's not the right approach, and I'll tell you why. You can't go in to say what's a valid case. You have to say, okay, here's X number of cases, and then you run them through a process, scientific filtering to say, okay, of these that are out there, here's where we can have binaries versus non-binaries. You want to focus only on binary cases as a rule, because binaries by their nature mean you can solve them one way or another. Let's say you eliminate everything but one possibility. That possibility that is left is the answer. That's how you have to approach it. So in all the ufology book series, right now we think there's going to be 24. There's a book exposing Lazar in December with Dan Binkert, Stephen, and myself. We're working on it. That's a binary because we can solve it. Now, unfortunately, as I end the miniature book within a book in this series, I mentioned that Stanton Friedman has been vindicated because I say that he said something to me which really left an impression on me. I end the front matter, the mini book within a book, by saying that Friedman was vindicated because he said new ideas come into being, not because people accept them, but because their opponents die and a new generation is born that is accustomed to them.
Thank God for the internet.
Yeah. So he's paraphrasing what Max Planck said, the father of quantum physics, because he had a lot of pushback when he was talking quantum. They're like, hey, we don't even understand normal physics and you're already getting Zen on us. But he was right. Quantum physics rules the universe. So ironically, Friedman is right. The problem is these opponents have died. I know I left the country for 20 years, did something very different, was happy to do that. Others just didn't say anything, said, I'm not going to bother with Lazar or whatever. Friedman is dead. Friedman had his issues. So these opponents have died. And then the media and Hollywood and UFO researchers like Leslie Kean, who is fooled by a video of an insect and thinks it's exotic aerodynamics, when she's on the History's UFO investigation team, I'm not surprised when a bullshit article appears years later by her in the New York Times. So all of that is related. And so of the binary cases, to answer the question, that's what we have to chase. These are coming up as they're solved, no aliens. But there's a group of cases like the McMinnville, Oregon photos. We're going to do the only that I know of AR, VR recreation of the Trent film. Either it's a real object hanging out in a film and you can in a field and you can go walking under it and look up and say, oh, okay. Or it's a small model just past the ladder that you see in the Time Life photos, which it may be. The problem is the densitometer readings of the bottom of the object. Veiling glare analysis indicates it's a large object far away. On the other hand, if it was a mirror hanging down, that would explain the veiling glare, okay, because it's not a normal hubcap or something like that. So that case is on our list to try to solve one way or another. It can be solved. It should have been solved, to be honest. We wanted to do the AR VR thing in the 90s. I walked away from the field. It wasn't done while I was gone. Fast walker cases and military cases and cases where things are detected in space and suddenly come in and take off and we don't know those physics. Those are very interesting. And then there's another area nobody's studying. I studied it up to a point only to be disappointed. When I was overseas and doing stuff on counterterrorism and working with Israelis and other foreign nationals. I found out very quickly that Mossad spends no time on UFOs. And that really bothered me because, well, if all this stuff is going on, or even one case like Rendlesham, Mossad would be all over it. Why aren't they trying to steal the secret Roswell unobtainium samples, you know? Because there is no smoking gun. I believe that if there's any evidence out there, we have to look for exobiology. I'm more excited over the methane plumes coming out of the moons around Saturn. Because
what about the tadpole off the sun? That was pretty startling.
Yeah, the point is there's stuff out there right under our noses, and UFOs are in that mix, just like a new planet that's found that could be a super Earth. That's exciting, even if it's not. It's a new planet. And so that's why the UFO software has an exobiology module. So I want to study the fast walker cases, and I want to help with UFOComp software to get all the data from top researchers into one standardized archive. Then, for the first time in a long time, we're able to look at common data sets. If Roswell really happened the way they claim, and there's no credible people I know of that say it did, there would be a whole cause and effect on that isn't there. Mossad would be all over it. KGB would have been all over it. But there was nothing. Why? Because it didn't happen the way people claim. So binaries are the answer. The ATEP thing is solvable, provided we can get access to the stuff that's still being held theoretically by the private contractors. That's how you avoid FOIA, right? You sign NDAs and have the private contractors have it. So those are what you target, binaries, whatever it is. Just like those photos. Remember the photo that was declassified or leaked of that balloon-like object outside the cockpit? People say it was a
Batman thing.
Okay. Until somebody runs that formula that's in the Meier book, you can tell how far away that object is because you know the camera used. You can plug the formula in. You can determine all that. You know how big the cockpit was. You have points of reference. Why nobody's done that is inexcusable. I haven't bothered because I don't have an uncropped version of the photo. But when I read that DIA analysts or DOD analysts couldn't figure out what it was, bullshit. They're using these formulas right and left. You know, photogrammetry and all that is not a new science. So all of these are solvable, but stick to binaries. If you don't stick to binaries, it's speculation.
If one thing is a lie, then you can't accept any of it.
You have to trust but verify, but really, really emphasis on verify. One example, the reason I cut the Harry Reid book loose is because this was taking forever to work the back channels in a way where I could avoid FOIA and so on. They might interfere with it. Pandolfi's allegation against Harry Reid is either true or it's not. He says he had ATIP shut down the moment he realized it was a techno scam. Okay, not anybody can have ATIP shut down. Pandolfi's either lying or telling the truth when he accuses Senator Harry Reid of stealing the money and helping himself. Okay? I want it investigated, so I have to put it out there. What the ultimate truth is, let the FBI determine it. But that's all I can do. I'm not a cop, but I can say, here's the evidence, here's the recording, here it is, and now we can find out. Let's find out. There's a question here. Yes, that's all accounted for. The metal samples. Real quickly.
Silver slag.
This was the first book to expose them here. But when I was in Switzerland and before that, the lab analysis had been done of the metal samples, okay? This is one of the metal samples I was given. It came from Wendell Stevens himself, who got it from Meier. And there's a penny there. That's my finger. You can see the sample. That was silver solder. And here's the scientist who supposedly authenticated them. He's bending metal with his psychic powers for the National Enquirer.
Cal, do we have those elements on Earth?
So Marcel Vogel was not credible in that analysis. And the analysis are reported in here that they were ordinary earth metals. The analysis are reported in there, quoted verbatim. It's in that chapter called Analysis of Billy Meier's Metal Samples. It's all in here. Those are just some photos of it. And I met Dr. Vogel, and he invited me for a contact with Semyazi when I met him. That's in there too. And he said to me point blank, the sample does not look like anything we've made here on Earth. That's what they quote him as saying. But Wendell told me, and it's in his writing, that Semyazi told Meier that when experts analyze them, the material and crystal samples would find nothing particularly strange. So there you go.
And
if anybody has any purported UFO samples, because my Roswell book exposes art parts, it did it in 97. You do a simple isotopic ratio test. The isotopes are different when they're from other planets versus other suns. So if any metal came from another system, you do an isotopic ratio analysis. If the numbers are too far off, you know it's not from Earth. If they're within the range of Earth, it's from Earth. Simple test. Nobody ever does it because that's ufology. Ufology would do an isotopic ratio analysis immediately, so.
And with that being said, we have used up all of our time for this evening. This was unbelievable. It flew by. Before we go, Robert, can you tell people if you have a channel here on YouTube or where they can find you if you want?
Yeah, I got a channel. I got a lot of old movies and some of my own adventures and stuff. That's over on Frapsap, FRAPSAP, all in lowercase. So come on over, subscribe to me, check out some of my content. You got to go all the way back to to the first ones I uploaded to see my archaeological discoveries that I made down in South America, and some of my other cool videos like that. And I just wanted to final thought here about Meier. He says the last thing, and all this stuff proves that none of it was true. It's all a hoax and a moneymaker and a cult. But what about the assassination attempts? 23, according to Meier,
right,
is up to that count. Who are these assassins? And who is? I mean, this sounds like the Pink Panther, where chasing Inspector Clouseau and he'd duck, and then someone would blow a gun and it would hit the little elf or whatever. I mean, 23. Nobody could get him. He's so slippery, that guy, that no world assassins could ever get him. And my final thought here is a saying that my grandmother, Alice Mullane, used to say to me when I was a little kid. You can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time.
Very true. By the way, you brought up a very interesting point. Methuselah Meier, his son, one of his sons, says his dad's basically a fraud. And he said that, yes, he would be the kind of person who would sit on a porch and have Jacobus or somebody like that fire a shot and miss him. And they, of course, pulled that little stunt from a Wendell, if you believe Wendell's account. But there are others who said, no, it didn't happen that way. And again, it's stupid to think that professional assassins would have still be missing by now. Pros don't miss. If they do, it's no more than twice.
Yeah. So Cal, Stephen was here, and he was saying, are you going to show the book? Tell everybody about the book. So yeah, before you go, and then after that, maybe you could tell people if they can contact you, or if you have a place they could reach out to you for anything.
Yeah, there's this wonderful book by Stephen and I called The CIA's Conspiracy Against Wendell Stevens.
Yeah.
It's available now. Go to Amazon.com. And it has the court files against Wendell Stevens. They're not on the internet. They'll never be on the internet unless someone bothers to put them there. And I don't think Mikey is going to do that. And in here, of course, again, is all the stuff that proves that Wendell, committed those crimes, voluntarily admitted yes. And then you've got all kinds of other stuff in there where Wendell is admitting that he basically made up the claim that they had, CIA had framed him and all that other stuff. You actually see smoking gun documents from that time, including surveillance photos of where Wendell committed his crimes. So it's available on Amazon.com. And it's part of the Ufology series. This is volume 2. The first one of it is Annie Jacobson's Area 51 book scandal. Being one of the 4 original Roswell researchers, it pissed me off that she said Stalin and Mengele helped fake Roswell. Bullshit. And then the third one is on the next one's on the Hill case coming out in October, and then the Harry Reid one. So there's 4 due out in October, but the Wendell one's available now. And they're all part of this series. And any updates that come, if people register, the updates will be free. They just have to register so we know where to send them. But yeah, get them now. And if you want to know more about my work, just go to calcorf.com. I have a website and samples of over 10,000 articles and a bunch of other stuff.
Man, what a great presentation tonight. Thank you, Cal, for that. And Robert, thank you, guys.
So great
Cal,
seeing you guys
nice
tonight.
meeting you, Robert. Let's stay in
Right
touch.
on.
we couldn't do a debate, so we did the best we could with
You lost,
everything
Michael
did.
Horn. You
Mikey
lost.
lost. Yeah.
Again,
Again,
he's used
Mikey
to it.
hasn't shown up. What is he afraid of? You know,
So,
the Pleiadians don't
audience-
let him debate. Yes.
I
Use-
now know what he's afraid of.
Send this around, what we just presented to you tonight. You know, show everyone that Michael Horn, he was the chicken. He was calling me a chicken. He was stalking me, cyber stalking me.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
been doing
He
that
does.
around. And, you know, no, you're the chicken, Michael. You didn't show up and you forfeited. You lost. We won. So we don't want to hear from you anymore. You got to
Yeah.
admit that you're busted. So that's all I
Yeah.
wanted.
And if you see Mikey, ask him about Wendell's criminal past with a sex crime and as the chief investigator for Meier at the time, and ask him about the Talmud Emmanuel, the real testimony of Jesus Christ
Right,
after he
it's
survives his crucifixion. And it will go downhill from there, folks. And then ask him how it can't be a religion. It's as bad as a Shatner impersonator. It's really
Horrible.
bad. Yeah.
It is. It is. Thank you, guys. I can't thank you enough. So
Well, thank
appreciate
you.
everything. And I'm going to put you guys in the green room. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. Thanks again. And
Thank
I'll
you.
talk to you guys soon. Appreciate it.
Okay.
And
Take care.
there you go. Yeah. Thanks, Cal. Appreciate it. You too. Wow. You know, it turned out fantastic. I think Cal Korff brought more information I would have ever dreamed of seeing. And Robert brought in a lot of information that was, you know, just a little different. And I didn't know he knew so much. So that was very, very cool to watch these guys. And I was just going to be a moderator tonight. So be that as it may, the show did go on, and I can't thank them enough. Man alive, that Michael Horn really, I think he really knows it's a hoax. And I think this is all he's got. I don't know. He's part of a cult, I guess. Cult of personality. Is that the song? By the way, I want to thank all the super chatters because, you know, I usually do that. So I want to thank Shellshock, Patrick Sheehan, IR Film, Ian Burwell, Tim Tinsent, and Dorothy Hawkins, and World in Chaos 76. And also Joel, who goes by Hungry Dragon, who donated $100. So I wanted to thank him for that. That is Hungry Dragon from Joel. So thank you for that. Mucho gusto generoso, everybody. This was the debate show that sort of, well, didn't really happen the way we thought it would, but we had an exciting night. I hope you guys learned a lot. We'll be back tomorrow. I don't have any, I guess I could do the old outro. Tomorrow there'll be a whole new intro, outro. But tonight we're just going to say goodbye. I want to thank the moderators, super chatters for everything you did. I know we had an attack in the chat room. That was kind of weird. Never seen anything like it, but they did some sort of attack with a bot. It happened on Truth Seekers. And I want to thank Truth Seekers for helping out with everything else that had to do with tonight. I can't speak. I'm going to go. Thank you all. And thank you, newcomers and veterans. And don't forget, Truthology for ufology. That's what GoofOn is, right? So we'll see you guys tomorrow, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. We're out of here, guys. Take care. Bye-bye. No outro music. That's a first.